Good morning, everyone. Lots going on, as usual. I'm still blocked from Michelle Rempel, but she's under fire recently for working from the United States. And this is weird. I mean, I didn't feel outrage right away. I was just kind of like, but I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate for MPs to work from out of country. I mean, if you can work from the United States, what stops you from working from another country, right? I mean, if we're going to do virtual parliament, why not just zoom in from the Middle East? Or, China, right? I mean, the bosses are right there. You could just be like, hey, what do you want me to tell them? And then you hear some Chinese in the background, and then they would just tell the parliament directly, right? Wouldn't that be faster than whatever it is they're doing now? It's weird, right? I don't think it's acceptable for Canadian government workers, Canadian MPs, the people who are running our country, to be working from the United States. She was trapped in the United States. Apparently, she went down there for a family emergency and got caught there. She didn't hear Justin Trudeau, the leader of the Liberals, saying, if you want to come home, the time is now. She didn't hear that one, I guess. Nobody called her and told her. The whip, the party whip in the Conservative Party didn't mention it. It was just an accident, just a mistake. I think it's weird. Anyway, moving on. Cian Bext, he's a reporter for the Rebel News. He's been trying to get into Justin Trudeau's daily discussions, daily pressers, right? These ones. But he can't ask a question, and he's tweeting, quote, I just spoke with the operator of the Trudeau call. I asked how some outlets get chosen twice a day and some unemployed reporters get in repeatedly, like Justin Ling. I asked if the Prime Minister's office had control over the call. She replied, possibly. She said that I have to follow up with the Prime Minister's office to be sure. So, regardless of whether, possibly is certainly not confirmation, it's probably further tactics to delay and just draw out time, right? I mean, if you don't get a no, you can't say, they said no. But if you get, oh, we'll look into that and then just never get back to you, handled, right? Nice and clean. So they're playing games, absolutely. And following up with the Prime Minister's office, I don't think is going to do anything because Justin Trudeau hates the Rebel because he thinks they're racist. And I think that that's just very, very strange. Regardless of what your opinion on the Rebel is, we have a free press, and the press, there are rules, like the press is allowed to ask questions, the press is allowed to attend and cover public events. If the government works for the people, they do, we pay them, right, through our taxes, then all government events should be public. So why aren't they allowed to ask questions? And they're not allowed to ask questions because possibly there have been instructions to skip over them, right? And we've seen that Justin Trudeau targeted Rebel and True North, Candace Malcolm's outfit, and a couple of others, Andrew Lawton, personally, for covering the campaign. A campaign's a campaign. You want as much attention as possible. So it's a very strange situation, except that they want full control of the press. They don't want, I'm sure they don't like me. I don't care. And I don't like them either. Here's something they're trying to move forward on, and this is going to be a quick headline, but here we go. This is reported yesterday. Today's April 30th, and this was reported April 29th. Federal government could act on gun control as early as Friday. I'm not going to go into this too much, but if enacted, the bans would be imposed through an order in council, a cabinet decree, not legislation, sources said. Parliament's attention is entirely on the pandemic right now. The government could still introduce gun control legislation down the line when the current limit on parliamentary work are lifted. So that's something that I'm going to talk to Frank Vaughan about today on Speaking Moistly. We're going to talk about the intelligence of suspending your entire government in the middle of an emergency. Oh no, there's an emergency! Hide under your bed, everybody! Don't ever leave your house again! Every press conference should be done from in front of your home. Oh my goodness, Zoom meetings only, right? Is that how a crisis is to be dealt with? So, but in the midst of said crisis, when you're hiding under your bed, don't forget to ban those guns. Criminals love gun bans because they don't pay attention to the laws, right? The mass shooting in Nova Scotia, he wasn't a legal gun owner, right? And there was some kind of weird stuff around that. They wouldn't answer the question and they weren't sure and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if they weren't sure, but we weren't sure. The public wasn't sure. So just weird that they're moving on this and not looking at some other very concerning things, such as meat shortages. Here's CTV News. This is reported on April 28th. McDonald's Canada to start using imported beef amid Canada's supply concerns. So Canada is having a hard time. Cargill and some other plants are closing down, and there might be this crunch, so says the news, But McDonald's, you can't have a meat shortage in McDonald's. You can have increased prices, but McDonald's is a big brand, a big blue chip brand. And so you can have a $7 Big Mac, but you can't have no Big Mac, right? So they'll import meat from the United States if they can't get it from Canadian farmers. And I mean, whose job is it anyway to look after those Canadian farmers and make sure that they get deals that are good for them? Yeah, that's right, Justin Trudeau, who's zooming in from under his bed, right? It's ridiculous. Here he is saying he's watching with concern. And what was the other word? Watching with concern. There's some other word. He'll say it. But I don't think that that's enough. I think that that's another dereliction of duty. Like, you're watching with concern. Donald Trump said this is absolutely important. This is one of the most important things. And he said this. He used the wartime production presidential order, and I can't remember the exact name. I probably should have gone to look it up, but I didn't. To make sure that the meat plants didn't close. And Justin Trudeau is looking with concern and something else. Here we go. Justin Trudeau warning. It's going to be about 50 seconds. I'll start it from the beginning. Here we go.
We understand how important it is to ensure the supply of food to Canadians right across the country. And we're watching with interest and concern some of the issues facing meat producers and the supply chain across the agricultural industry. We need to make sure that those supply chains can keep functioning, but we also need to make sure that the people who work in those supply chains and will continue to need to work in difficult circumstances over the coming weeks and months as we continue to battle COVID-19 are kept safe. The priority for us is both things, keeping people safe and ensuring a good supply of food to Canadians. We will make sure we're doing them both together.
Interest and concern. Interest and concern. I mean, like, are you just scrolling through Reddit? Ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, concerning. Right? Like acting class 101 from under the bed. It's weird. It's weird. The whole government thing, the inaction is weird. And we're going to finish off looking at explaining away Miss Hadju's previous comments on that whole conspiracy thing. You're propagating conspiracy theories, you evil reporter, you. But first I wanted to look at this. This is interesting. This is the Alberta curve versus actual. The models, right? Here's the models. I was talking about this the other day. I just wanted to show you. It says how COVID-19 could play out this summer. Alberta Health Services has released a new modeling projection which indicates that far fewer Albertans will need hospitalization than first thought in early April. The updated probable scenario projects 596 hospitalizations at the peak of the outbreak. If the current trend continues, there could be as few as 300 hospitalizations, under a low scenario. So, and here's the actual, right? Actual is under 100 still. Actual hospitalizations, and here's the low scenario, right? So, man, this is, I don't know what this is, but it's certainly not what people thought it was when it was coming out of China. Not at first, anyway. Here's a quick aside before we get back to Miss Hadju, but these two things, these kind of play into each other. So I'm going to use all this together. So in an emergency meeting last night, this was done April 29th. This was published April 29th. In an emergency meeting, Ontario's Conservative MPs demand leadership candidate apologize for attack on Dr. Theresa Tam. Ontario's Conservative MPs are demanding an apology from leadership candidate Derek Sloan after he questioned the loyalty of Canada's chief public health officer. The party's 36-member Ontario caucus held an emergency meeting Tuesday evening to discuss Sloan's comments and voted overwhelmingly to demand the rookie MP apologize to Dr. Theresa Tam, according to 3 sources with direct knowledge of the meeting. The sources spoke to the Star on condition they not be named in order to discuss internal caucus matters. Which Conservative MPs are talking to the Star? You gotta wonder. Anyway, here's Sloan's response, and his whole tagline is without apology. So here we go, April 29th. People across Canada are terrified and are dying of COVID-19. Stories of mismanagement on the part of Justin Trudeau and Dr. Theresa Tam are emerging, but the Liberals desperately want to turn the channel on their failures, and some media have given them cover by buying into their deliberate mischaracterization, of my critique of Dr. Tam and my further critique of Justin Trudeau. So let me be clear and speak directly once again. I did not and I am not questioning Dr. Tam's loyalty to Canada. There is no intention to question it. In addition, I never once mentioned Dr. Tam's race or sex. Justin Trudeau stoked this misrepresentation. The question regarding whether she works for Canada or for China was a rhetorical question. Sure, I could have just as easily asked, does she work for Canada or for the World Health Organization? Obviously, Dr. Tam is employed by Canada and not China. While she is strongly affiliated with the World Health Organization, she is clearly employed by Canada, not the WHO. I am not even doubting her intentions. I am sure that she wants what she thinks is best for Canada. However, she is responsible for relying on the flawed data of both the WHO and the PRC, People's Republic of China, for her decision making. This has literally cost Canadian lives. I am not questioning Dr. Tam's loyalty to Canada, and of course, Justin Trudeau is ultimately responsible for following her advice. But in both cases, I am questioning their judgment and their competency to do the job, not their motives. I remain greatly concerned that Dr. Theresa Tam still holds the position of Chief Public Health Officer of Canada with such a disastrous work track record. I once again call for her to step down immediately. Eventually, when this pandemic is over, we should have a general election so that the Canadian public can fire the person ultimately responsible for the many mistakes in the handling of this pandemic. With an election down the road, Canadians can and should fire Justin Trudeau. Sincerely, Derek Sloan. So, interesting response. He's not going to apologize, and the caucus is has voted already to call for a vote to expel him from the MP caucus. So that's interesting, right? If you don't toe the party line, you will be expelled from the party. And if you get expelled from the party, well, there's a playbook already of how to deal with you. If you want to join the PPC, you'll be branded a racist. If you want to start your own party, they'll brand that party a racist. And if you're an independent, well, good luck getting reelected. Jane Philpott didn't miss, Jody Wilson-Raybould did. So it's pretty easy to continue to have conservatives, liberals, libcons like Michelle Rempel, continue to march the Conservative Party to the center, continue to march it even further to the left, and to have absolutely no recourse. I mean, I've seen Mr. Sloan's like before, and well, I mean, here we are, right? And I hope that maybe there's a path to some electoral solution on this, but it doesn't look likely. It doesn't look like if an election were held today. I've seen people talking on Twitter saying, "Oh, we need an election. We're going to fire Justin Trudeau." We're not going to fire Justin Trudeau. Canadians are so invested in navel gazing and maybe scrolling on Facebook that they think Justin Trudeau's done a good job. The press is working. Nobody is going to vote differently than they did last time. Nobody's going to vote differently than they did last time. So if you're looking for an electoral solution at this point in time, it's about 15 years out. Unless the economy implodes, in which case, well, toss up. Who knows? If the economy absolutely is completely decimated, Trudeau won't win again. But if it's not, let's say 3 months from now, 4 months from now, when the government isn't out of money and they run an election, majority. He was so nice. He gave us so much money. That's how people work. Okay, here is Miss Hadju moving. This is related because Mr. Sloan's under fire for Miss Hadju and Miss Tam's incompetence. He's calling them out, and then the distraction is they're calling him racist, right? Because how can you criticize Dr. Tam or Miss Hadju? They're just following the WHO. They weren't wrong. The WHO was wrong. So it's not them, it's the WHO. Except that Miss Tam has a conflict of interest and she's on the board for the WHO. So here's Miss Hadju taking down a Canadian reporter in early April saying you're propagating conspiracy theories. Here he is asking here saying, how can you trust the numbers out of China? And she says, well, what she says, here we go.
Sorry, please let her finish. No. Ian?
So I would say that your question is feeding into the conspiracy theories that many people have been perpetuating on the internet. And it's important to remember that there is no way to beat a global pandemic if we're actually not willing to work together as a globe.
Actually, Miss Hadju, there's no way to beat a global pandemic if you just keep landing flights from infected areas. Taiwan is working as a globe, but you know who's stopping Taiwan from having any input? The WHO, who you continue to kowtow to. It's really interesting. So you don't want to hear from the reporter who's asking, how can you trust the WHO? He didn't say China, he said WHO, I apologize. How can you trust the WHO because of all their failures? And she says, those are internet conspiracy theories. How dare you? How dare you, Greta Eyes, right? And well, here is Vassey going after Miss Hadju for exactly that. And one more just before we get started on the Vassey clip here. This is April 26th. The United Kingdom removes China's unreliable coronavirus data from its daily briefings. China's being removed because their data is bad, apparently. And the WHO's data, the WHO was praising China all through this time period while Ms. Hadju was saying those are conspiracy theories. And a lot of people believe that China has purchased the WHO through putting in Mr. Tedros. So who knows, right? I don't know, but that's the hubbub. That's what people are saying on Twitter and online and stuff. So who knows? But she's saying, how can you, or do you stand by those statements? And Miss Hadju tap dances away and says, we have to work together as a globe. We have to do this and that, except that our liberal government isn't actually doing anything. They're not doing anything, right? It is offensive, this government's inaction on this. All they're doing is keeping us at home and landing flights from infected areas. Still, up to yesterday anyway, flights landing in Toronto and in Vancouver from China every single day. People say it's not what you think. And I say, then how come Mr. Menzies can go to Pearson Airport and interview basically mainland Chinese getting off the plane and talking with him? Like, I don't understand how you can see how those videos can exist. Not even how you can see those videos. How those videos can exist on one hand, and other people say, oh, it's just cargo flights. Cargo flights? Really? I mean, show me some evidence, sure. But the evidence I've seen has all been people are getting off those flights who maybe are Canadian citizens. But I said before, wouldn't you think if there was thousands of Canadian citizens left in mainland China that we'd know about that? There'd be a problem? Do you think that maybe they'd be under lock and key? Because, the two Michaels, right? No? I don't know. Anyway, here's Vassey going after, and I appreciate this. This is actually, both Vassey and Evan in the past couple of days have not been letting the Liberals get away with their non-answers. Most Canadians do. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. Here we go. Vassey going after Miss Hadju.
Point, Minister. With respect, though, I guess I'm asking now, and I understand the point that you and the Prime Minister both have made, that this kind of reflection will occur after this is all over. But in the meantime, the reason I guess I ask these questions is because we continue to rely on information coming out of the WHO to inform the decisions that the governments in this country end up taking. And if the reliance on the WHO in turn depends on information coming out of China, are you confident that information is accurate and reliable? That's the statement that you made at the beginning of April when all these questions about China were coming out. You called it a conspiracy theory to even question the veracity of what was coming out of China. Do you regret those comments, or do you stand by them?
I think, to be clear, what I said was there were a number of conspiracy theories floating around, and there still are. And I think it's really important that we understand that when we're dealing with an outbreak.
Isn't it interesting how she remembers that? Because what she said is, you're propagating the many conspiracies on the internet. She didn't say what she thinks she said. Back to this.
Break of this size with a global pandemic where, in fact, no country has been untouched, that we have to understand that the response needs to be global. So to your question, do we still rely on the World Health Organization? Well, yes, we're actually a partner country. We're part of an international research project called Solidarity that is looking at a number of the aspects of dealing with COVID-19, understanding more about the serology, as you pointed out, understanding more about the nature of this illness and how to treat it.
Tap, tap, tap. She's still not answering the question of, do you stand by the conspiracy theory statements, which were proven correct, right? One more quick thing. YouTube updated its terms of service. And under the new terms of service, if you publish anything that's against WHO, like that contravenes WHO guidelines, then YouTube will delete your video. And in the early part of the pandemic, a lot of the correct information was called conspiracy theory. So these companies have a lot of power. The WHO has a lot of influence, apparently in Canada and around the world too. So, and they're wrong consistently, giving bad advice consistently, have people in positions of power that have blatant conflict of interest problems consistently. And nobody seems to have a problem with this. So there's a problem with this. And there's a problem with the structure of our government when the issues people are seeing are racism and not Dr. Tam's absolute complete incompetence. And the fact that the WHO has been wrong and the steps that they've been recommending are wrong. We needed masks to cut down on things. Taiwan has been able to do that. It's a successful response to the pandemic is not global if locally we have the most deaths. We have the most cases, right? Compared to Taiwan and South Korea and other places that are doing well. We could be doing well, but we're following the erroneous bad advice of the WHO. Why? Because these people are calling anything in disagreement a conspiracy. Is that who you want running the government? When other governments are realizing the fraudulent data and the incorrect information that's being pushed from China and then through the WHO, right? It's incredible what's going on and what people are tolerating. The last thought I'll leave you with, I tweeted this, but it's worth talking about, and I'm okay to be wrong. I'm okay to be wrong. Can a charter right be contravened by a bylaw? Can you just say, no, you are not allowed to gather, you're not allowed to freely assemble? That's Charter Right 2C. In the charter, it doesn't say if there's no pandemic, you have these rights. It says you have these rights. We agree to stop gathering, but what about these fines? I mean, I think that they could probably be thrown out on citing the charter, but can a bylaw just gone? Right? Is that acceptable? I don't know that it is. I don't know that it is. Okay, that's enough for me today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Later on today, I'm going to be with Frank Vaughn. I know I've talked about this already, but we're going to be recording Speaking Moistly. I'm hoping to get it out tonight, but I've got a lot to do tonight, so it'll be up by tomorrow morning for sure. Check me out on podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm on iTunes and Google Podcast Library or whatever. I upload those most days. It's an audio podcast, but if you don't get notified from YouTube, you can listen to me there. And check out CanadaReport.co and CanadaPoly.com and SpeakingMoistly.co. Oh, I got that one that time. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a wonderful, wonderful day. That end roll is just taking forever now. Huh.